Okay, since mine is first. So let's see. Our topic is over bioremediation techniques and uses. And let's see. To start off, the World Health Organization, or WHO, have reported that around or about over 7 million people have been killed like each year only by like the air they breathe, which is astonishing from the air pollution or how much we pollute the air. And many industries like sites and have dumped waste into their surrounding courses or water courses, such as like just throwing stuff into the ocean. And since as the global population increases, more waste is going to be constantly produced by us, by air and water. And now bioremediation is the use of microbes that clean up the contaminated soil and water, and the biolog- biological processes that is that it stimulates the microbes to use our harmful contaminants as their own main nutrient source. Let's see, the main choice for recovery in America is contaminated, or the main choice for them for recovery in America is contaminated areas. And the two main well-known bioremediations is mycoremediation and phytoremediation. So the first one, the main course for bioremediation for that one is fungi. The second one is going through by plants.
Can you go like a couple more slides? One more. All right. So bioremediation is important because of the many eco-friendly benefits it brings. First of all, it's a very natural process. One of the websites I looked at said that it uses nature to fix nature, which I thought was really cool. It helps remove insecticides and herbicides from soil and water. Because it uses microbes, it's able to break down the harmful toxins and chemicals in the soil, and the soil around the treatment site is also usually disrupted. All right, next slide. Bioremediation techniques are often performed on sites, not always, but this is very important because the microbes break down the soil or the toxins in the soil without having to move it, which is important because then it protects humans and more environmental health because the toxins are not needed to be moved. There's also little disruption to the soil, and that's important because microbial activity can occur as it regularly does. Next slide. Bioremediation is also very cost effective because there's not a lot of equipment needed. And there's also less manpower and energy needed because it is performed by microbes versus people.
Okay, so my name is Dominic, and my part is the techniques and uses of bioremediation. So the techniques there's a lot of them, but it's split into two categories: ex situ, which means treating it elsewhere, like taking a sample or soil that's contaminated and treating it at a facility, and in situ, which is on site. And on site is more favorable, like my classmate just said, that it's basically less invasive on the environment and less toxins are going to be, polluting in transit. And both of the both of them have the same kind of technique, which is mostly just trying to get oxygen into the soil and like turning it and like like plowing fields and stuff like that, so that way more air can get in and those aerobic microbes can do their job and eat up all the pollution and toxins in that soil. And if we move over to the next slide, we have the actual uses, and this is a plain view. So what they do is they degrade pesticides, hydrocarbons, and chlorinated stuff like polychlorinated biphenyls, I think it's called. And this is cool because also, like was said before, it's a natural thing that happens anyway. We just kind of help it. And sometimes we introduce specialized bacteria or microorganisms that will do the job better for certain compounds. But mostly it's used for clearing up oil spills and toxins like spills, chemical spills and stuff in soil. And if we move over to the next slide, I was talking about um, how the most abundant way we use this is in water treatment. So most of the water that goes to our homes and comes out of our faucets is actually recycled and treated wastewater. So basically sewage goes into these big tanks that are almost in every city. And it's over like a 4 or 5 stage process where they use bacteria and other microorganisms that feed off of the toxins that are in that water, and they use it as a carbon source. And the way they test the water to find out if it's clean or not is that they do oxygen testing to see if the oxygen in the water is being used by uh, the toxins that are in it. So after like 3 or 4 or even 5 stages of cleaning using these bacteria and filtration, we end up with water that is safe to put back in rivers and lakes and, you know, dump back into the ocean. And a lot of it actually ends up uh, in our homes, which is, I think, it's kind of disgusting to think about, but I guess they clean it and it's cool. So we're not using more water than we need to be. We're just recycling. And yeah.
All right, so my name is Michael, and my portion of this is application number 1. So I will be talking about plant remediation slash phytoremediation. It's 2 names for the same thing. So the definition of phytoremediation is the use of living plants to clean up soil, air, and water contaminated with hazardous contaminants. So root systems are key for soaking up contamination. If a root system is not strong enough, then the toxins will kill the plant and it won't be any use to cleaning up the environment. So how does remediation work? There's several different processes that it can go through. It can either remove, transfer, stabilize, or destroy the contaminants that are in the environment. So it can trap the contaminants in the roots, it can filter it through the stem, it can cause a chemical reaction to break down the chemicals, or it can release the substance into the environment in a safer form. Next slide. Specifically, we have phytostabilization. This is like one of the 4 main processes. What phytostabilization does is it immobilizes the heavy metals that are in the soil or the water, and it keeps the contaminants from spreading further. So it takes it into the roots or it stores it in the leaves, and basically it prevents wind or water or even animals from spreading the contaminants further and making the effect of these contaminants even worse. Phytostabilization is especially effective for lead, arsenic, and other metallic element radiation cleanup. Next slide, please. Phytodegradation is the second one that I'll be talking about. It is the method of phytoremediation that involves breaking down the toxins or the contaminants. So plants absorb the hydrocarbons or other organic compounds into the roots, and it metabolizes it into a new product with the help of sunlight. It usually does this in the leaves and uses the sun's energy for this. So some products may be used by the plant for other purposes, but usually it's just released into the environment in a safer form. Phytodegradation is limited in its use, specifically by the metals that you're trying to clean up and the plant that you are using. Toxic metals, unfortunately, cannot be degraded, which makes it even more limited. Next slide, please. So these are 3 specific plants that can be used for plant remediation or phytoremediation. The first one, we have sunflowers. scientists can plant a huge field of sunflowers and they'll clean up the soil pretty well, especially of uranium, where it can take up to 95% out of the soil. And sunflowers are also good at other radioactive metals, such as cesium and strontium. They use sunflowers in areas that are mining polluted, and they're effective there. The second plant is the willow tree. The willow trees are really good at removing heavy metals such as cadmium, nickel, and lead, and these are used in diesel fuel pollution sites. The last one I have is Indian mustard plant. It's actually 3 times more effective at cleaning up cadmium than its other plants. And Indian mustard can also clean up selenium, zinc, mercury, and copper. Indian mustard has been used at the Chernobyl radioactive nuclear disaster location. And next slide.
Okay, so I'm Faye, and another application of bioremediation is used to clean up oil spills. And oil spills occur everywhere, and they can come from ships, tanks, pipelines, cars, and much more that pollute the waters, the soil, and other organisms that live in the waters. So 2 techniques that are used to help prevent oil from spreading and to remove it would be bioaugmentation and biostimulation. So in these pictures, there is a huge oil spill in the first picture. The second one is from Hawaii. So this is a ship wreckage, the USS Arizona, and oil still leaks from it till today. So there's like a whole bunch of crude oil, and you can still see some of the oil droplets in this other picture. So microorganisms occur naturally, and they're able to degrade the crude oil or petroleum that's made of hydrocarbons. And the biosurfactants are effective in controlling that oil because of its amphiphilic properties. So it's both hydrophobic and hydrophilic. So here is a bacterium cell that produces the biosurfactant molecules. So here are the red hydrophobic heads, and they're gonna surround the oil droplet with the hydrophilic tails on the outside, forming a micelle. They're surrounding each oil droplet, as you can see. This is like the same way how when we wash our hands with soap, the soap will form micelles around dirt or oil particles on our hands. Some examples of biosurfactants, and these are the list of microorganisms that can produce different biosurfactants, and they're very ubiquitous, so very unique, very diverse. So different microorganisms can thrive in different environmental situations. So whether it be some thrive better in higher temperatures or better salinity or pH levels, all those play into factor. So going back to bioaugmentation and biostimulation, in bioaugmentation, for example, with oil spills, oil degrading microorganisms are added to an existing microorganism population. And with biostimulation, there is a use of substrates or nutrients added to increase the growth of the microbial population, whether it's existing or added. And what bioaugmentation and biostimulation does essentially is it increases nutrient concentration, whether that be through fertilizers, so phosphorus or nitrogen fertilizers, the increase in nutrient concentration. By bioaugmentation, when you're adding those microorganisms into the already existing population, you're increasing the biosurfactants. So therefore, the rate of microbial growth is going to increase. And microorganisms can be specifically used to decontaminate a specific environment. And like before, these techniques, it's less toxic and it's definitely less expensive than using other chemicals or mechanisms. So here's a better picture of bio-augmentation and biostimulation. So in this picture, you can see the contaminant environment. So this is called indigenous microorganisms. So they already live there. And then you're gonna add a different microorganism population. So like in one of the examples, it was Pseudomonas aeruginosa. That's another bacterial population that produces rhamnolipids, which are surfactants that are gonna degrade the petroleum oil. So that's in bioaugmentation. And in biostimulation, you have your indigenous microorganisms again, and you're gonna add nutrients, so whether that be a phosphorus fertilizer, for example, as well as new strains, and that's gonna help to increase microbial growth as well. And these are all successes in bioremediation. Bioaugmentation and biostimulation can also be combined together, so you can add both, increasing more microbial growth and essentially just degrading petroleum oil faster to clean up those oil spills. So here are all our references. And then that's all we have. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.